Hi, welcome to the next lecture of the Introduction to Economics course. In this lecture, we will basically see the introduction to the macroeconomics topic. Well, I should mention this lecture was actually considered. I have put this lecture just before the on the week of basically midterm. So I make it short so that it will make it possible for me to answer your questions on the midterm. I mean, on the midterm topics. And I also put a relatively long video, around 20 minutes, and there is another part which I haven't put of the video. Actually, in total it's 30 minutes, so that actually the subject would be a little bit lighter. Well, here is the video. It is on basically the one of the biggest disputes in economics, which was between the Keynes and Hayek. Well, basically, that dispute is important because actually found that describes kind of also foundation of the macroeconomics and also critique of the main macroeconomic approach. Keynes can be considered as the founder of the macroeconomics. I think he's one of the four biggest names in economics. But Hayek was basically kind of his main critique at the time he was developing those concepts related to macroeconomics. So that dispute is in that sense an important dispute. And here you can also see basically the background of these two economists also, which is also interesting in my opinion. Well, as I said, John Maynard Keynes is considered as father of macroeconomics, and the main book, which was especially important, which I also consider as one of the four major works in economics, is the general theory. And well, I should mention that basically many topics actually that were covered in macroeconomics and by Keynes and later by macroeconomics, other economists specialized in macroeconomics, they were actually covered by also early economists. But I should also mention that this very early phase of economics was kind of supersede. There was a major change which is called marginal revolution economics, where the focus of the economics was shifted to individual markets mainly, and how whole economic system was connected with the individual markets and individual choices. Although I would criticize that model of individuals is pretty much standard. It assumes everyone is similar, and there is a particular type of individual which is very much simplified, even in the simplest version. And that was actually kind of the way macroeconomics was founded. That was late 19th century, early 20th century. And Keynes was basically actually a student of one of the major persons who has made that revolution, Marshall, and he's admiring Marshall. But he also lived in the time of the Great Depression, and he considered certain points cannot be understood by just the way macroeconomics is studied, even though all basic concepts are true. And one is actually the way crises are created. Keynes argues that in the long run, the market corrects all the problems, but he thinks in the short run, after a crisis occurs, the market may not be able to correct the crisis. It might take time for the market to solve the crisis. And in the meantime, maybe state intervention, outside intervention, might speed up the process in which the market is actually bring to the equilibrium point, which is the best possible point again. So in that case, he has created this short-run analysis into the economics. I think even the long run that is described is in many ways actually shorter than Marxian long run actually. So economics has pretty much focused on the short run. In addition to that, he also focused. He also has make economy focus on the demand. Actually, macroeconomics also in many ways focus on demand, but later actually the critiques of Keynes has kind of described the supply side economics, where we basically said that we should actually also consider the things that make supply more efficient, supply more productive. But Keynes pretty much has focused on the things that are creating demand and how basically with lack of demand, basically, economy can enter into a crisis. And in that sense, he also has created one of the major crisis theories. And that I should mention, well, in neoclassical economics, crises are also studied, but crises are external, which means economic system internally doesn't create the crisis, especially when it is unregulated. It doesn't create crisis. There are some theories that are basically some models basically that study how a regulated economic system can create crisis, but unregulated economic system doesn't create crisis. So Keynes. The economic system itself can create crisis. So internally, there is something mechanisms that create crisis in the economic system. That's his work, and his work is pretty much a written work. Later, using his work, two major models were created. One of them is ISLM model, which is actually focused on very short-run model, where only financial markets and the goods markets, the markets where goods are sold, are considered basically. So that's pretty much focused on demand and assumes almost supply is constant. The factors that are well, not supply is constant. Supply can basically increase as much as possible. And well, then there is a ADAS model where basically you have limits of the supply now, and you consider both demand and supply basically. We don't consider the ISLM. We will not see ISLM model. We will see one simpler model which was created later, which is considering the aggregate expenditure basically. It's an interesting model. We will see that. And then there are two other major models in the macroeconomics, which were not created by Keynes, which were created by two other economists, Solow and Phillips. So ISLM, ADAS, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, Solow's model, which was on growth, and the Phillips model on unemployment and inflation. These are the four major models. We won't see ISLM model, but if you are interested, you can look. We will see all of the three. Well, let's discuss briefly how, according to Keynes, the market might enter into crisis. Basically, Keynes argues the investments, especially, which are also a component of demand. Investors are creating demand because they are demanding all the equipment they need to basically build their facilities. But those investments are basically not directed rationally. They are very much built upon the optimism and pessimism. But this optimism and pessimism can basically built irrationally. If for an irrational reason there is an optimism in the market, then people start to invest, and that investment will create demand, and that optimism will basically create a good economy. Same thing is true for the pessimism. If pessimism is just if people are pessimistic, then they won't invest, and then the economy will go into crisis. And he argued, especially in the stock markets, which was, according to Keynes, the market which provides funds for investments to other investors, so it was key. People were mostly interested not in the profitability of the businesses, rather they look whether they are experts of whether, which basically focus on when people sell their stocks, when people buy their stocks. So in that sense, they are not preventing those irrational optimism and pessimism. They actually follow up those irrational pessimism and optimism surges, and the great majority is just following those experts. So they are also not experts of profitability of the businesses, basically. So an irrational pessimism, which suddenly created in the economic system, will basically make everyone sell their stocks. Stock prices goes down, investors are stripped of their funds, and economy might go, and demand might fall as investment demand goes down. So this will create a crisis. This will create a crisis, and after that, this will also decrease consumption because people, when investors don't demand, then demand will fall. Companies will not be able to sell their outputs. Basically, they will fire some of their workers, and those fired workers obviously will decrease their demand. And as a result, the demand in the economic system, consumption in the economic system will also fall. What is the remedy? Well, the basic Keynesian remedy is actually the government demand, which might replace the demand of the investors, basically. There are some other remedies we will basically see today and in this video lecture, and then we will discuss it further. But this is considered basically as the main remedy. And how should state create demand? Basically, for Keynes, it is not important. The state might even hire some workers to dig a hole, and then next day hire some other workers to fill that same hole. But in the meantime, he has created demand. Or Keynes has actually famously, that's a famous thing, has gone to New York. He's originally English man, and he has gone to a hotel, and he has actually the reporters were following him because he was a famous guy. He took a towel, which was not a paper towel in that case. Actually, it was a real towel in the luxuries hotel in New York City. You can still have the real towels, not the towels that are disposable in such hotels. And he put it into the ground, and he has actually stepped on it. They said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm improving the economy because now the hotel needs to someone to clean this towel, and that person will get money, and he will spend this money, and as a result, the economy will improve." So, basically, that's his viewpoint. Later, welfare states are usually associated with Keynes, but welfare state is basically not a Keynesian idea. Actually, it is an idea that's coming from the Marxian current of economics. Basically, you might have a better capitalist system for the workers if the state is basically guaranteeing the workers a certain minimum life standard. That's the idea. And we will not discuss this idea, but if you are interested, you can take my Marxian economics course. But anyway, let's basically let's stop for now. This is the first part of today's lecture. See you in the second part. Basically, see you in the second part.